Welcome to Blooming Out, a locally produced public affairs program discussing the issues and events affecting the gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender community of South Central Indiana. Blooming Out is written and produced by a team of dedicated volunteers and financially supported by listeners like you.
Well, here tonight on Blooming Out, we have the chair of the Bloomington Pride Film Festival, Mary Gray, and committee member Zach Zemansky, and they're going to give us a wrap-up on everything that went on with the Pride Film Festival 2008.
Welcome back to the show, Mary and Zach.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
It's my sense that the festival this year was a really successful event, bigger and better than ever.
That was my sense too. I was amazed at how many emails I got from folks who were saying that this was their first festival and they'll keep coming back, and other folks who were saying this was their fifth festival and it was better than ever. So it was really exciting to have so many members of the community come out for not just continuing the tradition, but actually starting a tradition for themselves.
Do you have any favorite events or films or activities that stand out that you're going to carry on next year? Or
for me personally, as the chair, I was blown away by how many students came out this year, and particularly for the campus events, to see so much connection between the different free public events that were not just screenings but conversations about the films, and having students participate in those events and community members come out for those events was just fulfilled every desire I had for the festival to be the kind of space where we bridge watching films and having really substantive conversations about those films. So that's what really stood out for me, like the Kinsey event on campus, just everything.
Well, I know that this year especially, I noticed the student rates were especially good, and there was a lot more that went on campus. Is that generally then considered to be successful, in terms of how much of a student discount there was?
Oh, definitely. I mean, in terms of the number of students we had buy passes this year, that was up. We actually sold out on Friday and Saturday nights. The party was, again, highest attendance. We could fill that Buskirk Chumley Theater after the transformation into the party space. So I think in terms of success for the student body coming to the event, that it was it had outdone what we'd done in the past, but probably the most immeasurable part about the festival, what made it a success, was actually having students and the rest of the community come together, which I don't think we've been as successful as we were this year in doing that. This really set the bar for next year.
yeah, I was going to ask you, I know a lot of the students that I work with were really excited about all the events this year, and a lot of them I know went to every one that was on campus especially. But I did wonder how much representation you had from the community. Is there any way to tell, or?
I wish we had a better way of tracking the numbers. I mean, I thought what was interesting at the Saturday matinee event, the gender cater discussion panel, that was probably the event where I could visibly see there were more community members or older community members as opposed to the kind of student demographic that I was seeing with the campus events. That was the one event that I think brought such a mixture of different generations, different genders, different points of view coming together for that event. So I think probably what makes the biggest difference is having it downtown and having it in the thick of the festival.
I was going to say that's interesting. I noticed a lot of community members there too, and of course I enjoyed that panel very much. But I wonder if perhaps as many students weren't interested in it because they either aren't interested in gender issues or they don't see them as problematic like some of the older people might.
It would be really interesting to have a discussion. And for me, that event, and I'm sure Zach can speak to this too, I think the one shortcoming for me, particularly as the moderator of the event, was seeing so many people who wanted to get in on the conversation. And at certain moments of the discussion, having it break into a degree of academic conversation that unless you were in the mix, you really couldn't get a foothold on what they were necessarily discussing, what the panelists were discussing. And I just want to put this out to the community member who had raised her hand and had asked to speak, and I couldn't get to her, and I am haunted by that we had a community member who wanted to speak and raise a question, and that we didn't get to her question because there were a number of scholars who had raised questions who were also part of the community, but
Has there been any push to try and, I don't know, have a discussion event during the festival that's very intentionally not academic? Like, I know I've been to theater performances where there's a talk back afterwards and it's not academic at all. It's,
right.
we're here, we created this art, what do you think of it? You know, is it too academic for some community members? And even, you know, undergraduate students sometimes don't dig that, you know, higher graduate level of academic discussion.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually talking about, I don't know if we want to do this as part of the film festival or as a separate event, but we were talking about some of the shortcomings with that panel. I mean, for one, like I know Mary had talked about, we focused a lot on sort of this broad controversy, a lot of which I actually felt was sort of misinformed, not really actually speaking to what the original controversy was about. But we didn't get to a lot of the community tensions that I had hoped that we talked about, you know, sort of even this idea of like sort of these false senses of trans people in general, like that they would transition for social ease or that it's a homophobic thing for them to do. You know, I would love to actually have a dialogue where people talked about the misperceptions that we have and sort of around all different identities. You know, we're talking especially in the LGBT community where all these identities intersect. I mean, racism, classism, sexism. I'd love to have some kind of regular conversation around that.
Well, you know, it might be interesting, just a suggestion, of course, some more work for you to do is to have something in the summer
Right.
where you would probably draw a lot more community members.
It's a novel idea.
Well, because there isn't a lot going on in the summertime here.
Right.
Yeah.
And it might be a good time to try and bring some people together for that.
I'd like to encourage listeners actually to join the Facebook group that's connected to the Pride Film Festival. I wish we had something offline to offer, but we have a Facebook group because we are talking about doing a summertime Pride event. And if we do that, it could be a great opportunity to start up some conversations. And actually, what we had talked about initially when we were planning the Gender Cater event was to schedule so that we would have opportunities for community discussion that were outside of the films, would be a chance for us to come together and talk about how to set up the conversation. So I agree that I think in terms of this being able to break past being just an academic scholarly conversation, that we really need kind of regular participation in structuring it.
I know there was a small summer Pride event a couple summers ago. I mean, how did that end up going? I know it didn't happen this last summer.
It was a fantastic event, and what we realized in doing it was how exhausting it is for the folks who are doing the regular Pride, the January Pride event, how exhausting it is to try and do that and Summer Pride. But I think we've gotten to the point where we have enough volunteers and enough momentum to make those kinds of events sprinkled throughout the year happen without taking too much energy out of making the January event as filling as this one was. So.
Well, we're getting the wrap-up signal, we're out of time, we're always out of time. But I hope that you'll come back and, are you working on next year's festival already? Is that?
I think we are, yeah.
Yes, March the beginning, and we begin in March planning for January, so anybody who's out there interested in volunteering, please contact the Busker Chumley or check out the Facebook group.
And then would people interested in the discussion group also go through the Facebook?
Yes.
Okay.
The possible discussion.
Now, I think you're gonna have a lot more volunteers, and you'll have to come back and update us on progress and about the summer event too, if that is gonna really happen.
Definitely.
Excellent.
So thank you very much
Thanks,
for coming
yes.
back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.